Hi guys, this is Adam Atkinson. I'm here with Dr. Kori Propst, and for today's Contest Prep University, we're going to talk about the psychology of training at home.
Ooh.
And this is round 2. We did a little short Instagram snippet and it got cut off, so we're actually going to do it here, which I think will work way better for us. So one thing that Joe had talked about in a most recent CPU, and I even noticed this myself, the first day, because we decided to let our gym just have a couple days to let any potential germs expire. So I did a few in-home workouts to kick things off. And when I was standing in my living room, it just did not feel right. And I had to move somewhere else. I had to move to the garage because I just associate my living room with comfort so much that it felt very weird to get my heart rate up in there, or I should say attempt to, because no calories were burned, no sweats were made. And I just realized I cannot train in my living room. And I kind of thought I was screwed until I realized, well, I can go outside, and that's definitely my best option, I think, for myself. But the other option when it's cold is definitely the garage is not that bad either. And I think it's because I don't associate those areas of my house with comfort like I do my living room.
Yeah, Adam, you make a really good point with that the associations that you have and the links that we make based on where we are used to doing things. I mean, humans are pattern makers, right? So the more we do something in a certain way, in a certain environment, with a certain emotion, with different inputs coming in, whether it's music or the clinking of like the iron. I mean, think of all of the different senses that are involved on a daily basis when you go into your training session. And now you're standing in your living room and none of that is there.
Right.
So, there's two parts to this. It's the internal part, like the emotions that we associate with a certain area or place or smell or sound or whatever. But then there's the external environment. And we really get used to having, certain thoughts, certain feelings, and certain actions taken based on the environment in which we find ourselves. So, you were like, yeah, I think I'm pretty screwed. I'm not going to be able to do this in my living room. And that may be the case for now. But if, we see that this is being extended for another month, right? The social distancing. So we need to adapt. We absolutely have to adapt. It's going to happen differently for everyone. But I would say, Adam, that, if you were to keep doing it in your living room, maybe you have to move things around. Maybe you need to put music on. Like, I would find certain associations that you could bring into that environment if you don't have any other options. Because some people may not have any other options. It might be literally, I have my living room and that's it. And it feels crappy in my living room right now. Like, I can't, like you said, I can't sweat. I can't get, I'm not feeling that intensity and that energy in my body. Give it some time because it can happen, because it's not that, you create these certain associations and no other associations can be built. We are constantly creating associations based on the actions that we take. So I do think it's possible. I know it's possible, but it takes time to grow and to build. The other thing that I want to add is, and this is sort of the way that I think when I'm thrust into a situation that's completely new, it's the first time, it's like, why did I expect that I would feel exactly the same in my living room as I would in, my workout area in my house or in the gym or with my personal trainer or with my training partner? I think our expectations can get in the way a lot of times, and then we end up feeling really discouraged, like, this is never going to work, or I'm going to have a really crappy training session, and they're all going to be crappy. We go to this all or nothing place and start thinking in really distorted ways, when we need to understand, too, that just biologically, novelty, the newness, the freshness, the difference, while we may not like it, it really catapults us into a place of growth and learning.
Yeah, absolutely. We posted a home workout the other day, and one of my guys really struggled with it, but I was really happy that he did it.
Yeah.
And it was basically cardio, and he had a very rough time with it. But I could tell afterwards just how he posted about it, and he posted his time, and he knew it wasn't that great. But I could tell he felt like he had grown from that situation and how difficult that was for him. And it might be something that challenges him furthermore as he does this. So,
well, and that's such a great example, I think, because we're pattern making machines. I say that machines, like, we're pattern makers. We're not machines. We're not robots. Like, they don't have emotions. We do. But it's very easy to get locked into routines and have specific rituals that we engage in repeatedly and over again. But him doing that could potentially spark some interest in a new way of training. Like, he may be like, God, I felt good doing that. Not like I didn't do it well. I didn't feel skilled at it. Like, and I was sucking wind because I never do any cardio. But that was actually kind of fun. And I can see that I don't have that kind of strength. Like, I'm freaking awesome under the squat bar, but ask me to do like burpees and I'm done.
Right, yeah.
And so, yeah, it may be like, I want to be that kind of strong too. I want to be an agile athlete as opposed to just like a bodybuilder.
Yeah, we're finding a lot of my clients are liking these, and actually they're very based around the premise of CrossFit without weights right now, because we're trying to structure them for everybody. I think everyone is finding, I would like to do something like this, maybe just once a week to change it up.
Yes, absolutely. That's how I train. So I'm still a bodybuilder. I still love resistance training, but I do a lot of body weight and functional type training workouts. And I was doing this when I was still competing, just because I felt like an athlete, because I wanted to focus on like endurance. I wanted to focus on agility. I wanted to focus on different types of strength. And you know, as a psychologist, I'm thinking, it feels a little off, Kori, that you would just do like one thing with your body when you train your mind in agility and endurance and, you know, all of these other different ways. So it's like, we're also competitors and we focus on symmetry. And I'm like, is there symmetry between my mind and my body? So, you know, I think this situation that we're in right now can move us into a place where we can ask ourselves those sorts of questions like, oh my gosh, now I am seeing how kind of rigid I've been in just doing one thing one way. Wow. Maybe I could open up to some other things and be a more well-rounded bodybuilder / athlete.
Yeah. I think there's also different types of satisfactions with different types of training, whether it be powerlifting, bodybuilding, or like you said, agility or functional training. There's a lot of joy in exploring outside of your realm. So that's one thing that I find interesting is powerlifters are so rigid in doing 3 things majorly and then a little bit of accessory work after that. And I would honestly have to say, for out of all the fitness communities right now, if someone does not have a home gym, powerlifters are probably suffering the most because just can't replicate those movements as perfectly, the exact bar position, but you still can keep some good strength going.
I agree with you,
Similar movement patterns.
Yeah, that's it right there. So psychologically speaking, if we're talking about the psychology of training at home, we need to be able to ask ourselves the question, what do I have at my disposal? What can I do? Because most of us in, first time situations, I listened to this podcast. Brene Brown has a great podcast. Your listeners would probably enjoy it too. But she calls them effing first time. So FFTs. Most of us right now, whether it's in training, whether it's in, our financial situations, our career or job situations, our family situations, we're in the middle of FFTs, right? Mm-hmm. And we have to be able to take perspective in FFTs. And sometimes, perspective is, what's my experience been in a similar situation? That's how we get to perspective. Well, sometimes we don't have experience to draw from, right?
Right.
So that's when we go to other people to ask, like, hey, have you been in a situation like this? Like, what are you doing to modify your workouts to ensure you're, getting your goals met and your needs met? But then, to what you said, Adam, about power lifters being a little bit more limited, again, we could go there. There's nothing I could do. I don't have my gym. I don't have all the weights. Or what is it that I can do? What are maybe the limitations that I've been working on? Maybe it does have to do with like agility sort of movements or something like that doesn't necessarily require weights, but that's going to actually help me squat better or bench better or deadlift better. Yeah, why don't I focus on that? Because that's what I can do.
Absolutely. Interestingly enough, I programmed for a client last night, and she said, if you could please just suggest anything else I need to buy. I finished her program. I said, you're looking for the same exact pieces of equipment I am. And I said, honestly, I don't think you need anything. And I own a whole gym. And right. I said, here's the 3 next things I'm after. And I said, maybe grab a machine of your choice if you really want one. But I said, honestly, you have more than anyone that I've worked with on the team so far as equipment goes. And I think you're fine with everything you have. I felt like I didn't have to modify anything I actually wanted to do with her programming.
Yeah, it's cool. The thing I my brain is pinging as you're talking, Adam. And one thing I'm literally picturing a person doing these sorts of, maybe rehab type movements or functional type movements that are going to help them ultimately with their bigger lifts. Mm-hmm. And them like in the middle of a movement being like, oh my God, I'm so bored right now. I can't handle this. Like, and just having that internal struggle with like, oh, I just really want to squat, or I wish I had, and that volley that goes on in our heads. And what do we do with that? Like, what are the struggles you are hearing your clients deal with internally?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is before we started programming for them, they would stand in their gym and they just, they would distract themselves almost because they were in such a negative headspace because everything they'd known had been taken from them.
It's hard.
So again, it kind of does go back into getting into routine, drinking your pre-workout, throwing your headphones on, setting up that as typical as you can gym environment, mimic that. Just like if you were a kid and you imagined yourself flying, you have to put your headspace in back mm-hmm. into that headspace of training. And I think for a lot of people, the distraction is, this isn't perfect, or is this training really good enough? I'm seeing a lot of that. People almost don't believe that they can maintain muscle throughout this process. A lot of people think they're going to lose muscle. So then it comes down to what's the point? It's almost like a weightlifting binge. If somebody eats 10 calories over, they say, well, I already screwed up, so I'm just going to eat more. My workout's not going to be perfect, so why start anyhow? I missed yesterday, so why start today? And it begins to be this really negative mindset and a very big snowball effect for people.
Yeah, I'll start again on Monday. This was crappy, so why should I even try? Yeah, you bring up a really good point, and I think it has a lot to do with our expectations. Really getting in touch with those is super helpful. And because, you're talking, Adam, about clients that you're currently working with, they have your support. So you're in this awesome position to be able to not just hand them a workout that's with bands or whatever other small amounts of equipment they need to actually have a really effective training session, but you're able to say, okay, dude, let's chat about what your expectations are. What are you expecting from yourself in this workout? And let's talk about all the thoughts that might come up in your head as you're doing it, because there's expectations like that we can really get in touch with that are the shoulds. I should be this, I should be that, this should be the outcome. But then there's kind of the flip side of that, which is, how can I do this in a manner that is in line with what I can truly expect, if I'm making any sense. Just really having a sense of that, and you as the coach can go there with your clients, because if we know what we can expect, if we've talked about it and it's clear, there's clarity there, then we're like, now we have something to focus with. Here's the expectation for this workout. I know you had all this, but those are the old ones with the old situation, with your old equipment. Here's the expectations now.
Yep, absolutely. And people love that accountability, and we've really moved that into our group, which has been really exciting because, we're doing workouts that, how fast can you finish this? And people are posting their times. It's making a great community. It's a lot of fun. So we're actually going, with this whole evolution, we're going to keep this going at least on a once or twice a week basis, so people have additional activities they can engage in through
That's super smart, Adam. Just from the perspective of just, again, being an athlete. And you're generating excitement and you're generating novelty and you're allowing people to explore different things, and you create that sense of community. Like, people feed off of each other. If you're doing an AMRAP, do as many reps as possible in 1 minute of push-ups. Who's the winner?
Yeah.
I'm in. I'm totally in.
Absolutely.
Can I participate in your group challenges?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the challenge is, this was set in our laps. We didn't have a say when these changes came about. You know what I mean? Yeah. So how we feel when something is forced upon us versus when we choose it. I'm going to stay away from this person because they violate my boundaries, and I'm going to stand up for, what's important to me and my values. Mm-hmm. I'm going to choose to start functional training because I recognize that, I could be a better, more well-rounded athlete as a result of it, versus all the gyms are closed, guys, and you cannot train there. Ew. Right. So there's our basic psychological need of autonomy, which is, often misunderstood. Autonomy does not mean independence. Like, I do things on my own and for myself. It's not that. It's a sense of volition and a sense of willingness, and it's satisfied when we are not forced into things. So our sense of autonomy has been threatened. And everyone has that basic psychological need for autonomy. So I think if we can recognize that yes, while we were forced into a position that we would not have chosen for ourselves, we can still ask ourselves, like, how do I want to respond here? Right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then create opportunities for autonomy within the new situation. What am I choosing here?
Right. Yeah, I think that's important, is to make sure you're not feeling, forced. It still is a choice to work out at home or not. It may not be the best situation, and you may feel like you've gotten a lot of freedom taken away from you. But the good thing is no one's being singled out in this.
You got it. Absolutely. Yes, that's a really good point. We're literally all in this together. We are all navigating this at the same time, experiencing very similar struggles, and that's helpful for me to remind myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same here, because we know that every business is going through this as well, and every client's going through a different situation in terms of employment or not employment. And that's definitely, even though these are going to be temporary situations, it doesn't make it hard or less hard on other people.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And something that has come up since all of this kind of came down is there's this comparative suffering happening that I hear. And what I mean by that is I'll have a client share that they're struggling with something, but then and this happened before, but I saw it escalate when we had to social distance and all of these different things in our environments changed. They'll share that they're struggling with something, or something feels really hard to them, and they're experiencing some amount of pain. And then they'll be like, but you know what? I'm fine. Like, it's not a big deal. I will be okay. There are a lot of other people in the world who are experiencing much more difficulty than I am. And I just want to say that, like, invalidating ourselves that way and invalidating our experience and whatever our struggle is, it does not help us. Because when we do that, we send a message that we shouldn't acknowledge or feel our pain. And that's not only do we send the message of that, we send the message that other people shouldn't struggle either. And when we do acknowledge it, we let everyone else know that, collectively there's going to be pain. And so let's acknowledge it. Let's put it out there. Let's validate it, and let's work through it together. So yeah, I don't know. Have you noticed anything like that among your clients?
I have, actually. And actually, even within myself, one thing, when me and Sarah went to bed, I said, I am anxious about certain things all the time, and maybe things I shouldn't worry about that much. And I said, after this virus is over, I said, a lot of those things just are not going to matter much anymore. So this has almost been good, just training in general to just work through a crisis. Because I've done this since 2002. I've never had anything like this happen. So this is way different. And it's definitely taken some adjustment. But I think with me and my wife, when she hates being isolated and she's struggling with it, and she has said that, other people are doing worse than me. I'm just stuck in the house. I think she quoted our grandfathers went to war. We're just being asked to stay home, but that doesn't mean that it's not hard for you. And people, I will say, like, if my wife ever had to get a jail or anything, she would not make it. Like, she just would not make it, because this has been horrible for her. And that just means it's hit her in a sense of importance. And I think this has hit a lot of people in a primary sense of importance for them, whether it be the social distancing, maybe there's less work to do, maybe people don't like watching TV and that's what they feel like they have to do. And a lot of people's things they like to do have been taken from them. So we're just trying to find what a new normal is for a little bit till April 30th, hopefully.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And let's give ourselves some compassion and remind ourselves to be patient with ourselves, because it doesn't help to get super rigid and to allow that inner critic to just blast us with how we should be acting and how we should be feeling when there's no script for this. Yeah. There's absolutely no script for this.
Be flexible too. You're going to have times where you're feeling more positive than others. And I've told people if you can have a vent time, because there's going to be a lot of ups and downs with this. If you just say like, hey, at 2:00 every day, like that is our time that we vent because this situation sucks. But if you know at 2:00 every day, that's your time you can kind of bitch and just get it out. You don't have to worry about when you're feeling good at night, like watching TV, calming down, then another wave of negativity comes in. You can just say, can I hold this until 2:00 tomorrow? I can. And you can try to remain positive. So that's actually something me and my wife have done, and it's worked great because, there was one night where we were cozy and she was just like, I hate this. And I'm like, we should just structure a time because basically what happened, she was sad and then I was happy and then she was sad. I was like, this is going to be great if we could all be happy at the same time. So I said, why don't we make like 2:00 our bedtime? And then the rest of the day, we don't talk about anything negative. We're happy and we align happiness together.
I love that. I super love that, Adam, because it clarifies and gives you an intention and you have a purpose. And it's not avoidance. It's just, we're going to set this thing in the box. We're going to set this thing in as things come up, we're going to put them in the box. And I've had clients do this where worries come up, anxieties, and whatever's beneath them. Write it on a piece of paper, put it in your jar. Write on a piece of paper, put it in your jar. And then at the end of the day, or whenever at 2 p.m., when you and your partner or your support person, agrees upon, let's pull those out of the jar and go over them together.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. That's good.
It's contained. It's contained. What we don't want is for like the scared or, again, all of these emotions are valid, but we don't need to let them bleed into everything and every context and all over everyone else.
I'm glad you said bleed into other things because even though we weren't mad forever, just there takes some time getting over that and transitioning into normal. And we really said, like, we're going to be sad all day unless we let our emotions, like, align. So I said, let's just schedule a really small, like, hey, this is where we vent. And then the rest of the day, we kind of, like you said, keep that in a box until tomorrow. It may not even matter by the time that gets there. So we're actually finding we're conserving a lot more energy just being positive versus having the negative.
That's so right. It can be the first step to regulating. We know for your wife, for example, if she's in a really heightened state of anxiety or discomfort, she feels threatened in some way. There isn't maybe necessarily a real life-threatening threat happening for her, but she emotionally feels threatened. Her trying to reason herself out of that at that point in her emotional volatility, and you trying to reason her out of it with like, let's talk about this, sweetheart, like it's not going to work. So
Right.
by her, you know, taking the action to write it down, put it in a box, you know, whether that's metaphorical or real, like I'd actually have a box that you guys put it in, like in your house,
Right.
to make it more real for her. She gives herself the space, you give yourself the space to regulate. It's very sensory. When we need to regulate, it's like we need touch, taste, sound, smell, or sight to allow our nervous systems to calm down. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's like the act of writing it down on a piece of paper, folding that paper, we feel it, or crumpling it up, tossing it into the box, closing the box can be very regulatory. It puts us in the present moment. If we're emotionally like volatile, we're way out here. We're thinking about everything that's bad out there, everything that's going to go wrong, how awful it's going to, like we're thinking, wait, we're not present. We're not here and now.
Mm-hmm.
So the sensory aspect of that brings us into the here and now, and then brings us closer to our ability to then relate, like you and your wife relating, and then reasoning, using the prefrontal cortex to be logical now. Think through the next steps. This
is great, because in a time of kind of fear, you know, there's a lot of people not thinking as logically as they could. That's why we have a toilet paper shortage, which really makes no sense at all. But it does let you know that deep down psychologically, people are, one of their number one fears is not having that.
Survival. It's survival at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a very, going to the bathroom is a very base survival behavior, right?
Right.
Like, and that's the mode people were in, survive.
Right. Yeah. So this is excellent information.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a fun discussion, Adam.
Yeah. Can we wrap it up here, you
Wrap
think?
it up. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us. We'll probably do some more of these as this virus continues till I think April 30th now is when the release date might be. But we'll be back for another Contest Prep University next week. So thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.